Today we're going to talk about why I believe parents should monitor their children's screen time. Did you know that on average, kids spend twice as long playing on screens as they do playing outside? In fact, from the ages of 11 through 14, children in the United States report an average of 9 hours a day on mobile devices, and that's not even including screen time for their schoolwork. That's over a third of the day. So, what's the situation? Technology is increasingly becoming more important in our everyday lives, as well as technology is being exposed to children at younger ages and at higher amounts. Children as early as preschool are starting to use electronics. So, how is this a problem? Technology has many negative effects when abused. In today's society, physical, mental, and emotional health is steadily getting worse. For example, obesity rates in the past 20 years have gone up by 12.4%. Ultimately, kids are being threatened by a multitude of health effects due to increased amounts of screen time during the day, resulting from uninvolved parents and the world's norm. Something needs to change. So, how can high levels of screen time impact children? Firstly, sleep is negatively impacted. As you can see in the graph, as screen time rates on mobile devices increase among the youth, their time spent to sleep decrease. Their sleep worsened. As you can see, people on their devices for more than 7 hours got worse sleep than 4 hours. So how is this a problem? This is a problem because sleep is negatively impacted. Phones contain bright lights and blue lights, which harm the natural melatonin process. This suppresses production and causes circadian disruption, which delays sleep. Screen time also comes at the expense of other activities before bed, as well as poor amounts of sleep leads to a multitude of problems such as increased chance of injury, eye fatigue, and the common cold. But my kid being on their device before bed helps them fall asleep. Although this may seem true, this is false because device time before bed stimulates the brain and engages the mind in the thought process, as well as data shows otherwise. Lauren Hale reviewed 67 studies published from 1999 to 2014 and found that screen time is associated with shortening sleep and delaying the timing of the sleep in over 90% of the studies. Secondly, high amounts of screen time is also very harmful to children's bodies. Cell phones contain a high amount of radio frequency radiation, and this must be noted because children's brains don't finish developing until 24, and undeveloped brains are more at risk of the effects of RF-EMR radiation. RF-EMR radiation stunts the development of the brain and affects the things such as children's attention span. A study conducted by the National Toxicology Program of the U.S. National Institute of Health linked RF radiation and cancer. Results of these studies show that exposure to RF-EMR through cellular phone usage is related to many risks, but the scariest is the risk of cancer. High amounts of screen time can also impact other aspects of your body. Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of conditions that occur together that increase your risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. These conditions include increased blood pressure, high blood pressure, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol. The likelihood of having metabolic syndrome in adolescence increases daily screen time hours increased. As a result from the same study, it had been inferred that screen time greater than 3 hours per day were 2 to 3 more times likely to have metabolic syndrome. Furthermore, high amounts of screen time behavior is claimed to increase the risk for things such as obesity and high blood pressure, which are major risk factors for cardiovascular morbidity. Many people say, but it hasn't happened to me. It's rare. Well, 87% of children had screen time exceeding recommendations from the American Pediatric Academy. So what makes you different? These problems are more real than you think, and a lot more common in today's society. In addition to that last study, a study of 4 to 8-year-olds found that short sleep time can promote following day fatigue, thus leading to more screen viewing behavior. It's an addiction, and the change must start now if you want to see progress. Thirdly, high amounts of screen time also negatively impact mental health. In a study conducted by New York Social Work, depression rates increased from 4 out of 10 to 5 out of 10 people when screen time increased from 7 to 8 hours for children. The data shows that as screen time went up, so did rates of depression. So many may ask, how exactly is mental health impacted? A study linked overall screen time to depression and suicidal behavior among adolescents and children who use digital media for more than 2 hours a day. The same study also found that adolescents aged 6 to 17 with attention problems spent a greater amount of time on their devices, thus resulting in the severity of their attention problems to worsen. Overall, it has been seen that high amounts of screen time leads to poor mental health. Lastly, kids' social skills develop slower when they spend large amounts of time on mobile devices. High amounts of screen time lengthen the development of social skills, as well as interfere with the kid's theory of mind, which is understanding others' emotions. And that's very important because they need to create relationships as kids, which you need to understand others' emotions for. In response to the data, many people may say, but I go on it to interact with people. And while I do understand this, I politely disagree because social interactions are more valuable than online ones. You can't replace real interactions with online interactions. This is because real interactions, when in comparison to online interactions, include effective communication with body language, as well as they're more emotional and involve the Broca's area. So you may be wondering, how am I involved as a parent? Adults that spend less than 2 hours a day on leisure-related screen time are less likely to permit children to be on their mobile devices for more than 2 hours a day. You hold a great power. Even with all the data, some people may say, I don't want to have too much control over my kids, as well as I don't have time to control screen time. I totally understand this. In today's society, it's very hard to find time with family, especially when you're working a busy job. But that being said, while I do understand, I still disagree, because there are many different options to controlling screen time besides the physical option. For example, you could offer more time to play outside or inside. Here, you can see a family enjoying their time outside with no devices, creating memories that they'll cherish forever. Ultimately, as a parent, it is your responsibility to prioritize your family's health. You know just how important and how much power you hold. Therefore, create a better future for your children. Imagine, if parents control their children's screen time, the impact of these devices on kids would be a lot less severe, as well as the world will be healthier. Ultimately, it is up to you. You should take responsibility and change your habits, as well as monitor your children's mobile device screen time. This is because high amounts of screen time among children can negatively harm the brain, children's sleep, and their physical and mental health, as well as it can lengthen the process of social development. The risk is not worth it. The future depends on what you do today. I appreciate you listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned a thing or two.